Independent Sheldon Clare.
Hi, thanks for having me, guys. I'm really having a great time and I'm looking forward to a great interview.
Awesome, thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
Maybe you could just start off and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you from originally, or you Prince George boy?
I am a born and raised Prince George boy. I've been here since '62. I'm the oldest candidate running, which is kind of funny. I'm used to being the youngest guy in the room, and this time, hey, I'm not. My family moved here first in 1930. My grandfather was a railroader, lived down on the Cache, and was a blacksmith. He worked on the boilers for the railway. And I've been pretty active in the community. Most people would know that, as has my family. I've been a past president of the Royal Canadian Legion. I taught Army cadets here in the 1980s for many years. And I helped get the Alpine Club of Canada section started here in the 90s. I've been active with the Rod and Gun Club. I'm currently president of Canada's National Firearms Association, which I'm fairly well known for. And I've been around a little bit, seen a few things, and I have two lovely daughters, and they're both in French immersion. They're doing quite well. And what else about me? Oh, there's I guess much more. I decided to run as an independent candidate in Cariboo, Prince George.
Yeah, it just felt like it was time to go for it.
Well, there are a number of reasons I decided to run. I was dissatisfied with the party system. The party system really hasn't been doing its job for Canada and Canadians. I became dissatisfied about some of the machinations of the current government. I felt that I was being manipulated and lied to, in fact, by arrangements that have been made. That's pretty well known. That's out there. It's what people would know. And people talked to me about running. They said, you know, Sheldon, you really make a great member of Parliament. Why don't you put your name forward? And people came forward, offered to support me with time and money, and I said, yes, I can do this. And I very quickly developed a simple policy platform. Basically, diversify the economy, encourage education, develop a burgeoning tech sector. Let's get our reliance on non-renewable resources played down a little bit and balance the economy with much more pressures to find new markets for our renewable resources. Our agriculture, for example, has been at risk for a long time. Forestry also needs some help. Why don't we work on those?
Definitely.
What do you think your chances are as an independent candidate to actually get elected to Parliament?
If people vote for me, they're excellent. And I'm getting a lot of support, actually. I'm quite heartened by the people who are stepping forward and saying, you know, Sheldon, I really didn't have anything to vote for, and you're giving me something I can support. You're a credible, sensible option between the parties who offer a package that I don't agree with everything in the package and I can't support. That's what people are telling me.
It's like a TV bundle, and you only want a few channels, and you can...
Yeah, that's exactly right, you know, and I think I'm more like Netflix.
Yeah.
Guys really can connect with the UT audience right there.
Yeah. So we were talking about the past candidates, definitely first past the post versus a new system. Where would you stand on that?
Well, you know, I've long believed in the first past the post system because of its ease in looking after balloting and counting ballots and looking after how that works. Because one of the things people say, well, the party that wins only has the support of so many folks. Well, the parties that lose have the support of far fewer folks. Mm-hmm. And that's a point to consider. It is the case that we had a different system in British Columbia back in the 1950s, and it was not supported by the people, and people wanted to know the results more quickly. They wanted to be able to choose their person based on that first past the post system, so they got rid of the old proportional representation that they used to have. The people in BC certainly voted it down in terms of the requirement to make the change, but in terms of an independent, it would certainly benefit me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm the best candidate. I don't have a party machine. Mm-hmm. I don't have the resources, the funding, all of that goes along with a strong, heavy campaign. And in that respect, I'm probably, many people who would vote for a party, I'm probably their second choice. Mm-hmm. Because I have a lot of varied background. My credentials don't just come from the right, they also come from the left. I'm a fairly centrist sort of option for people. I did contract negotiations for my unit for 12 years. I was chair of provincial bargaining for my faculty association union for 6 terms.
So it's not new for you.
This is absolutely not new, and my work on Bargaining Coordination Review Committee as that provincial chair was something that I found very rewarding and educational, and it really helped me to get a good feel for things. I've also been to the United Nations on 4 occasions to speak against the Arms Trade Treaty and arms and light weapons talks in my role as president of the National Firearms Association. So I have real international experience in a real forum with people who really didn't like me and what I was saying, and I get that. And I found there that I really learned a lot about the United Nations. My undergraduate degree is in international relations, my graduate degree is in military history, and I've been teaching at CNC for the past 23 years as a technical business communications instructor and as an historian.
Wow, credentials.
I got them to spare.
Yeah, no, it's great. It seems like you running as an independent, like you said, you don't have the party machine behind you. It's much more truer platform that is relatable to Prince George and the Cariboo region.
Yeah, and one thing that students might be interested in is I'm very concerned about student debt. Student debt is a huge issue. I see it in my classroom every day when people are coming in there and they're working, their eyes are not there, they're vacant, they're not paying attention because they're working jobs just to pay to be in my class. And I think that the student loan problem is really something that needs to be addressed, and I think as a minimum to start to address that, and it's something you can't just change overnight, is to get rid of interest payments on student loans. That would be a huge way to alleviate the terrible debt many people are encountering when they leave post-secondary education.
Definitely.
I find that's one of the biggest reasons why I didn't even attend post-secondary education, is just going into debt.
Yeah.
And that's
Well, it's the money. I have many friends who are brilliant, they're very bright, they're very well read, they're intelligent and articulate, but they didn't finish college, they didn't go to university, and a big factor in it was the cost. I don't think our educational system should be putting up barriers for people to be able to get the skills they need to participate in an economy that really needs much more education to make a difference. You hear plans from my Liberal and NDP colleagues to spend a whole bunch of money on various programs, but they claim they have costing, but I think their costing is suspect. Anytime you want to spend money on a program in government, you got to remember a couple of things. First, there's only one taxpayer. One taxpayer pays everything at all levels of government. And that's you and me, guys. So that's what we're talking about here. Secondly, if you're going to adjust spending, you either increase taxes, you cut spending in other programs, or you increase your tax base. And when you increase your tax base, you also have to be providing the services that those people need. So my question to them is always, what are you going to cut spending on? Where are you going to increase taxes, and how are you going to build up your tax base to pay for these things? And the answers that I'm getting from them are really vague. They're esoteric. They don't have a real clear answer. And that is a problem. I'm prepared to work with anyone or against anyone in the parliamentary system to achieve really good results for Cariboo Prince George. I'm someone who has built bridges. I'm someone who's been able to get the deals done. I've been someone who understands how legislation goes through, and I understand the process. I've been to Ottawa many times. I know about the travel, the difficulties of having to go from Prince George to Vancouver, all the way to Toronto, and then to Ottawa, and possibly with another stop in between sometimes. I completely get that. And I think I'm the best person to be the member of Parliament as an independent candidate. I provide real options that the others cannot provide because they're put in a box and they're forced to give you that package that they've all bought into.
Definitely, yeah. This is the first time meeting an independent run politician, and it makes a lot more sense, actually.
I think it's the best way to go. People need to understand that if they keep voting the same way that they always have, they're always going to get the same results. If you actually want to achieve real change in government and get more respect and attention for Cariboo Prince George, you have to change how you vote. There's no other way. You cannot keep voting to keep something you're afraid of out. You need to vote for something you can support and someone who is going to be that best representative. People tell me I'm that representative, and I agree with them. I think I'm the best choice. And on October 19th and in the advanced polls, I think that people would be well advised to vote for Sheldon Clare as their first and only choice.
Right on. Thanks very much for stopping by the Garrett and Karl show.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Well, we're here with Tracy Calogheros,
You got it.
and we're going to do a little interview with her and see how she is doing. How are you, Tracy?
I'm tired. It's early.
It is early, and see you got your tea.
I do have my tea. It's warming me up. I was just outside waving at cars.
So maybe you could just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Tracy, and I have been the CEO at Exploration Place for the last 13 years or so. I've been at the museum playing with snakes and little kids for about 22 years now. So yeah, I really enjoy it down there, and I certainly wasn't looking for work when this election campaign came around, but decided enough was enough was enough. It was time to run and do something about getting Canada back to being Canada again.
Cool. So maybe we'll talk about a little bit of change that you would bring if elected in your riding. What do you plan on doing?
Well, actually talking to people is a good start, you know, being involved in what's going on in the community, showing up for events, and then trying to find out exactly what it is we need to do as a group in order to be able to further the needs in the area. So my primary focus would be making sure that I get to continue all the conversations I've been having and move us into this 21st century together. Instead of working in on all of our little silos, we could get together as a group and make some changes that are going to benefit the whole area, not just one particular group or one particular community. Work together as a whole.
Everybody overall.
That's right. You know, get the federal government to be a partner in major projects.
Right.
Get money brought into the table so that when we're building a project like the rink in Quesnel that they're building right now, that should have been a multi-purpose performing arts center, a whole bunch of other things, but they couldn't get the federal government even to talk to them. So, you know, in the future, I would definitely commit to being at the table for projects like that and being an advocate for what we're doing here.
Oh, right. Yeah, really open up the conversation. Because that could be such a multiplex, right? Like
Absolutely, it should be. And you know, you get efficiencies when you build things as a whole and as a group rather than trying to do things one-offs. It just works better.
Definitely. So taking a look at your resume, we've seen a lot of jobs in the past. Wow.
Well, not so much jobs as boards I've been on.
Boards, yeah.
Yeah.
Vice chairs and...
Absolutely, yeah. I've enjoyed a lot of them actually. The vice chair at Emily Carr University was very cool.
Wow.
I enjoyed that a lot. Those kids were amazing. I took fine art in university. I took sculpture and art history. And so getting to actually sit on the board of governors for a post-secondary organization like that was pretty cool.
Wow.
We went every year to the annual student show and learned a lot. And sure, boy, those kids have some crazy ideas. But you know, that's where our future is, and I learned a lot through the post-secondary school project. And I was on the Museums Association board there. I was the president for a while for the British Columbia Museums Association. Another opportunity to work at bringing fine art and arts and culture and history all together under one umbrella and slowly start to build a cohesive single voice for the arts culture in BC to be able to then speak as one voice to Ottawa when we're looking for funding and to the province. So,
right, especially when they're cutting down on the arts and music programs and all that.
Absolutely. Well, all of the arts were always a nice to do, not a need to do.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
As soon as they start cutting, we're the first ones on the floor. And you know, really, arts and culture is what makes our whole country. That's what Canada is defined by, is our arts and culture. So if we're not funding it and we're not supporting people in this kind of an endeavor, you know, we're never going to be self-sufficient in the arts world. We're always going to need support because it can't be user paid. It just isn't possible.
Right.
But yet it's the thing that everyone holds up as what it means to be Canadian.
Yeah, the uniqueness that we all they're cutting down on, yeah.
Absolutely.
Traditionally, the arts do really well in times of recession and stuff. When everybody else is doing really bad, the arts seem to thrive.
Yeah.
I think we're used to it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I know when I was in high school, that's what I told my mom. I was going to be a starving artist. So, you know, if that's your goal in high school, I suppose arts and culture is just,
Yeah.
it's used to dealing with, you know, penny pinching and trying to get through
yeah.
on a shoestring.
Yeah.
Any student lifestyle.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
So are you a Prince George resident your whole life, or?
No, I was born in Toronto. I was in Toronto, I went to York University. I was living in downtown Toronto when I moved out here. I picked Prince George off a map in 1992 because it was in the middle.
Center of the BC.
You got it. As I've learned, Vanderhoof is actually the geographical center. You have to get that straight. Now that I've moved here, I've learned that. But that is how I wound up in Prince George. And then I wound up with the job at the museum in '94, and I have been there ever since. The opportunities that this place has are unparalleled, and I absolutely love the access to the wilderness and the water and the air. It's just a great place to be. I love this area.
Yeah, it's great. Me and Garrett are originally from the Bulkley Valley.
Oh yeah.
Kilwonga area, Smithers, Terrace.
Nice. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's just like this with a little more mountains, but still just beautiful. Love fishing, hiking, all that jazz.
Yeah, that's the only job that really tempted me to leave was when they built the Nishka Museum there and they were looking for a new director, just because that Nass Valley is so gorgeous.
Yeah.
So I get it. It's a beautiful space.
What do you think about the first past the post system?
Well, I think it's got to change. I think it's time to have some kind of proportional representation or a single transferable vote. It took me a long time to get my head around how these other systems would work.
Yeah, I still don't fully understand how they work. I understand first past the post, but for representation vote, it's kind of a little different, eh?
Yeah, it is. It's more complicated, and so I think there has to be a real in-depth discussion with the provinces and with Canadians and all parties as to how we reform the electoral system. But first past the post doesn't work because it lands us with a government like what we've got right now that's making decisions for all of us with only, 30-40% of the vote. So if most of the country doesn't want what's happening, there's got to be a way to represent that in Parliament. So Trudeau has said that within 18 months of taking office, there will be new legislation introduced, which is a pretty high-speed timeline. So that means that this would be the last first-past-the-post election for Canada under Justin Trudeau.
Wow.
So I'm on board with that. I think it's great. The reform needs to happen.
Yeah.
Then people can actually get out there and vote their conscience. This strategic voting discussion that's going on right now, I don't think it works. And the problem is that people need to vote for something, not against something. And so, I'm hoping that they will vote for the changes that we're offering at the Liberal Party and that we can actually then get in and implement them. And once the changes, particularly on electoral reform, go through, then people really can vote for what they believe in.
That is a good answer.
Well, you know what? I believe it. This is the part of the campaign that I'm enjoying the most, is having these conversations, because I'm not a speech reader, I'm not a speech writer. For me, I need to really believe and passionately in what I'm talking about. And I know the material, I have really engaged with this platform. I think a lot of Canadians have. And so talking about it just gets me jazzed. I'm excited to do it. So that's why I was happy to come down and talk to you guys. I thought it was a great idea. The more people I can reach with the message, the better off we're all going to be, because you guys need to vote and all of your peers need to vote. And we've got to find a way to get you guys excited about October 19th and what it can mean for everybody.
We have to get the younger generation involved, our generation.
They say that it's could change the country, the youth vote.
Oh,
definitely.
absolutely it would. There's way more votes out there that aren't getting cast than are getting cast. And so if you figure everybody that thought, well, my vote doesn't count, if all of you voted, suddenly your vote counts a lot more than all the people that did vote.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it seems to be like the general consensus with our age is like, oh, vote doesn't count, and I don't know how that got started, to be honest.
I think politics got mean. People started with these attack ads that don't actually talk about any policy or anything that matters, or they're worried about, I don't know, what somebody said on YouTube or what somebody's hair looks like.
Or cutting phrases out completely out of context.
Taking part of a sentence, absolutely. And so then that's what starts to happen. And Canadians, by nature, are not extreme left or extreme right. Canadians tend to be open to new ideas. So that's a middle-of-the-road approach that says, hey, that was a good idea, but so was that one. Well, let's talk about it and figure out what the best one is and work together. This being trapped in ideological dogmas that you see when you get into these sort of extreme left and extreme right parties, there's good ideas in them, but they can't seem to get past their own ideological pursuit, and then you can't really have a true conversation. If you go into a conversation already knowing what your decision is, you're not open to anybody else's ideas. So you have to go in with your mind open, and in my view, that's what the Liberal Party does. It welcomes everybody into the center. And I think when the Liberal Party fell apart because it forgot that it worked for Canadians, when it got chucked out 10 years ago, it had it coming. They had totally disengaged from Canadians as a whole. but they've spent the last decade figuring that out again and really talking to Canadians. And so I think of it like a lost decade. We had no leadership that was open-minded, and we see what the results are. We're living them right now. And Canada is not the Canada that I grew up in, and it's sure not the Canada that I want your kids to grow up in. Canada needs to get back to being what we were, welcoming, honest, open.
Known as a peacekeeping country, again, as
Absolutely.
we dropped in that rank of it.
Celebrating our diversity, celebrating our differences, not using them to divide us and to anchor us in this culture of fear. That's not what I want for my world, and it's sure as heck not what I want for my country.
Tracy Calogheros, opening the conversation on Canada. Thanks so much,
Absolutely.
Tracy.
Thanks for having me in, guys. Sorry to get you up so early.
Hey, no problem. I think I want to go catch the boys.
I'm up to the university now. I've got a class to teach in First Nations.
So we're here with our local Green Party candidate, Richard Jaques. Nice to meet you.
Good morning.
So you're a retired RCMP officer?
Yes, I am. I retired in 2008 to pension.
So how long have you been before that?
Before that, 23 years.
So that was quite a career you had going on there.
I have no regrets. My first posting was in Port St. James, British Columbia. That's where I ended up. I ended up calling to Vanderhoof, and I said, "Where is Fort St. James?"
Yeah.
I'd been down Highway 16 to Rupert many times with my family, but we'd never turned off to Fort St. James, so lo and behold, here I am. Fort St. James, then Tachi, then Tacla, then Prince George, of course, and then over to Haida Gwaii and some parts in Port Hardy.
Wow.
You know,
You really got to see a lot of British Columbia. Did
then
you see that job?
I went with the Prime Minister on 2 tours, John Schwitchen. In 99, 2000, I was at the APEC conference. That was in the news, of course. The Summit of the Americas in New York City. I was there.
You received accommodation from
The riot at the Hyatt in Vancouver. I was there.
Awesome.
But I wasn't in uniform. I was in plain clothes. So. But Jean Chrétien, yeah, he was the Prime Minister at the time. Followed him around, and it was okay. I enjoyed it. No regrets. I retired at Burnaby in 2008. Enjoyed it. And retired to pension. So.
Nice.
And I went back to school.
So what made you decide to run for the Green Party?
Trudeau 2.0 pissed me off. I tend to shoot from the hip. I was a lifelong liberal when I was when I first went to college back in the 80s. I was a young liberal. I was very happy that our Constitution had been repatriated in 82, and that we owned our Constitution, we could do what we want, and I followed the Liberal Party for years. That was kind of, my father was a staunch conservative. He was as blue Tory as you could get. He was British. My mother, on the other hand, was, she was NDP. You know, she was from Belarus, just by the Black Sea, so she was NDP. Very socialist leanings. I went right up the middle and liberal as a young man. Then Bill C-51 came along.
Oh yeah.
So many of us, and I'll say senior liberals, you know, most of us that are in our 40s and 50s and 60s are, you know, telling Justin and Gerald and the rest of this generation, don't do it. You know, 106 law professors, you know, over 200,000 students in the universities across Canada said, don't do it. Don't vote along for it. And he did. You know, and then you have this mass exodus across Canada. I know in Vancouver and BC alone, there's probably 4,000 liberals that said, "Hasta luego, baby." That was the end of that. So most of us left the party. Then the Green Party approached me, and they offered me Cariboo, Prince George. And I guess someone in the party must have known me, like from even my teaching or some of the lectures I do give. And they knew that I was married from a girl from the Cariboo, that I spent many years in the Cariboo, so it's a natural fit. You know, I married my wife. I tried escaping the Cariboo, like in the early 2000s. I really did. You know, because I've been working up here for so many years. And I eventually met my wife in Williams Lake. And got married in Williams Lake. And if you marry a girl from the Cariboo, you're married to the Cariboo. You're never leaving that.
No.
So
what up, boss?
You're not going anywhere. So I ended up staying in the Cariboo. And we've done the pilgrimage for all the birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, funerals, you know, and all the camping and stuff. So it never really left. You know, we always spend all our time up here. So when the Green Party asked me to come to the Cariboo, I was quite, yeah, sure, why not? I'm good about it. Then someone that's one of the local media said, well, you parachuted in. I said, I would never jump out of a perfectly good aircraft. Thank you very much. It's just a stupid, foolish thing to do.
Yeah.
You know, so I have family here and a bit of a foundation. I'm happy with it.
So if you are elected in the Cariboo Prince George riding, what do you plan on doing? Where do you stand on change?
There's a lot of change here. A lot of it has to do with, well, obviously jobs are important. I know not a lot of the candidates have been talking about the allowable cuts and the beetle kill and a few things. And when I first came back, I was very happy to see the mills were running. The trucks were rolling, things were moving on, but the allowable cut is dropping. And not many candidates are talking about that. You're going from over 5.77 million down to 3 million, you know, for the mills, the allowable cut, as per the chief forester. And that's primarily in the Quesnel, Williams Lake areas where it's actually dropping. And only about 1.5 million of those logs are going to be live, the rest are going to be dead. So one of the big key points that I'm looking at is upgrading our mills. Because if you're gonna put dead wood, because the beetle kill wood had value in 2006, and the feds were going to pump a whole $1 billion in this beetle kill crisis.
Yeah.
They did about 5% actually made it here. So now the wood that was good in 2006 slowly lost its value over time.
As that beetle kill does, right? Because it gets those blue streaks, but then it just turns after time.
So what happens? The wood dies. So now, yeah, you can log 1.5 million board feet of beetle kill, but it's dangerous wood, and I've said that a few times. So we have to retool the mills to handle the dust, because we don't want a repeat of Lakeland Burns Lake.
No.
Dust is dangerous. That's what happened in Burns Lake. They were doing beetle kill out of the Oots area, and it's dry. So again, we have to retool our mills. I don't want to see jobs lost. That's just terrible.
No. Or lives at worst, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a big one. Infrastructure's another. You know, like Prince George is like usual, like most interior cities, where we have 2 seasons, winter and construction. Our roads are coming apart. You know, and so I'm quite happy to see that Highway 97 is being twinned. And Highway 16 West, yeah, that's a dangerous highway, man. It hasn't changed. I've been out there a few times, went out to Fort visit friends, but yeah, it's good to see infrastructure. We need more money in infrastructure. Education is another policy. Tuition is expensive, and the Green Party is pushing for no tuition at all. You know, some of the other parties are saying, well, the student won't have to repay the loan until they start earning about $25,000 annually. Well, they have to get through their education first to get a job.
Yeah.
You know, and others are saying, well, we won't charge them the interest. Oh, wow, that's a big
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, but no thanks. You know, as a student, you know, I've generated probably about $55,000 in student debt. My wife was up over $100,000. So if you want to do an MA or master's, never mind your undergrad. If you want to do an MA or a PhD, you know, it's not a nice situation.
No.
Yeah, so jobs are important in this area. B51, of course, is going to come up tonight. That's what the debate's about.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so again, I don't agree with B51. I don't agree with giving, you know, as I call them, keyboard cowboys.
So, continuing your studies, what are you taking down at UBC right now?
Education, history major.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I'm a history major. I'm a history teacher. But I do teach law on the side. I do teach police foundations when I'm called to do it, police recruits and stuff like that. I teach communications primarily and the enforcement clauses of criminal code law. Mm. So when we're talking about Bill C-51 this evening, I'll be speaking not as an expert in the field, but as one who can talk about what are the powers you're giving the keyboard cowboys to do.
What's actually going on here?
Yeah, it's a mess. Like I said, okay, let's say under the new Bill C-51, if me and you were standing on the highway, blocking a northern gateway or an Enbridge vehicles like happening in New Brunswick, we could be thrown in the Hooskow for 7 days with no reason. It's called preventative detention. Like, the criminal code says 24 hours. If you don't have anything on them on 24 hours, they're released immediately. Under the new code, no, you're in jail for 7 days. You know, they can exercise a disruption warrant, which means that they can take the charge, rip that up, and stop all over your charter rights, which are protected, but not anymore. It's called a disruption warrant. You know, so there's a lot of things that these people, and same with Schedule 3, and not a lot of people have read Bill C-51. I have many times. If you go to the back of the book, it's called a Schedule 3. And Schedule 3 lists all the organizations that can share your information. So practically every government department. So CRA can share your information with all your tax information can be shared with the Corps Customs Agency, which can be shared with the Excise Agency, which can be shared with the Drug and Food Agency, which can be shared with the Department of National Defense. All your information can be shared right across the gap.
Right all over the board.
Right, completely across the gap. That's C51. And they've changed the wording where, because criminal law is based on fact, the belief that the person has committed the offense, all right? Civil law is based on a balance of probabilities, right? So it's kind of the maybe factor. Oh, maybe did it, maybe didn't. There's no absolute proof, but kind of, right? That's C51. They changed the word. They took out the words will and should or could and replaced them with may or likely. So the entire, they just opened it right up to everything, right? So you may commit offense. Not saying you have.
Yeah.
Or will, but you may.
Yeah, there's a probability.
There's a likely probability, there's a balance of probabilities that you may do this, so we're going to throw you in jail for 7 days, and then we're going to talk to you for 7 days. As an investigator back in the day, if I had you in jail for 7 days, I'd probably get a confession of you eventually after 7 days. Most of the time we usually had maybe 5 to 6 hours to do it. Now we're just saying 7 days. But it's preventive detention. There's no your charter rights guaranteed under Section 10, 11, and 12 are completely thrown out the window. But it not only deals with pipelines, it deals with civil unrest. So if you do anything to block critical infrastructure, a pipeline or even a highway, or anything that affects the economy, they don't define the economy, they say anything that affects the economy, or critical infrastructure. I wish I had the thing in front of me, I could go through it. But if you do any of those, you're under arrest. They're planning from, I'm not sure what they're doing in Houston right now, but you can't get a motel room in that area. There's about 200 bounties staying in Houston right now, but in Burns Lake, they booked up all the hotel rooms. Because I think there's going to be a move to dismantle the Silverton camp. And I don't think, and that's another thing, even as an ex-RCMP officer, I can tell you that I don't think the government should use the police as their own security guards. Industry's on its own. I don't think they're doing anything wrong up there. And the RCMP should be listening to the Supreme Court decisions. Harper's gone after the First Nations on at least 9 occasions and lost 9 times in the Supreme Court. So stop pushing the buttons. So it's getting real complicated.
Read the writing on the wall. It's not
yeah, stop it. You're not winning any friends doing this.
All right, well, I'd like to thank you a lot for coming over and coming to the Garrett and Karl show.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's a different kind of studio, but it works for me.
Also, thanks much, Richard.
Thanks.
Well, we're here with Trent Derrick, our local NDP candidate here in Prince George for the Northern Cariboo. Is there 2 different ridings in Prince George?
There are. There's Cariboo Prince George and there's Cariboo North Peace River.
So what's the cutoff point? Where's the line divide?
The line goes down Central Street all the way down to Massey, and then it cuts down Massey to Staples, and then it cuts down to Patricia Boulevard right down to the river. So anything that's in the downtown area on that cutoff is Cariboo North or Prince George North. Anything on the other side that's outside of the downtown is Cariboo Prince George.
So who is our representative for our riding right now, currently?
Currently we have Dick Harris. He's the incumbent MP. He's not running again this election, so it's going to be Todd Doherty for the Conservative Party.
All right. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where are you originally from?
I'm originally from the Smithers area. I was born there. Moved to Hickson at age 2 and lived there till I was 12 years old. And moved to Prince George when I was 12 and did my education here. And went to school, went to college and university in Edmonton. So I was there for 4 years. And worked in Port Alberni for 3.5, and then came back here about 3 years ago.
Cool, that's like us. We're Bulkley Valley boys too.
Kiwanga. Was it Hazelton you were from?
I'm from Kittenyow, actually, so just right down from
Oh,
Kittenyow.
really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's
My
cool.
auntie says she babysat you at one point. I'm just clearing that up, making sure that all the facts line up, so it must be true.
Just make sure it's there. I might have been a bit different when I was 2.
Yeah. No, you still had the pin and everything. You had the smile working on that.
You just had the pose down at 2 years old.
So, if you are elected, basing on your platform, how can you assist the community? And what is your platform basically?
I think our platform it's one of the strongest. We're community based. That's what we're trying to look at. So even when we talk about our infrastructure, what we want to do is we don't want to direct how that money is spent, but we want to allow the communities to decide where it is. So we do plan on spending $1.5 billion on infrastructure, but that's going to go up to the communities, and they're the ones that are going to decide on where it's spent. Also, when it comes to manufacturing is something we're really also focusing on as well. So our manufacturing, we do have some tax credits in place for innovation and development, research and development for manufacturers. And my favorite right now is and I think it's one of the stronger points of the platform is we want to lower the small business tax from 11 to 9%.
Right.
With that is small businesses employ 80% of the people in Canada. And they're the ones that are going to reinvest. Large multinational corporations, when you give them tax credits, they're not going to reinvest. But it's the ones that are going to be here. They're in the communities. They're the ones that donate to charities. They're the ones that really build the communities up.
So locally based companies, yeah.
Locally based companies, and those are the ones that we want to support. Those are the ones we want to put the investment into and say, you know what, we want you guys to work hard, and we know how hard you work, and let's support you.
And it'll pay off for everybody, community based in the end, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, you have a couple of small businesses yourself. Why don't you tell us a bit about those?
Yeah, I do. My wife and I, about a year and a half ago, purchased Spa of the North in the Coast Hotels. It took us about a year, but we're actually pretty happy to say that we're able to get our employees up to a living wage. So we brought benefits in for them, so we're pretty excited about that.
Cool.
And the one that is getting a lot of hype and we're super excited for is that we brought in Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory. So we've been open just about a month now. It's been great, and I love it. It's a fun job. But it's kept me super busy.
Yeah,
campaign. Everything came together at the same time. Campaign, the second business, but it's fun.
How do you find the time to campaign and run 2 businesses?
My wife's been awesome. She's been super helpful, super supportive, and that's her kind of contribution to the campaign. And she takes care of the house and takes care of the businesses. There's been a couple long nights. There's some things that only I'm able to cook and make in there. So. After being on the road for 12, 14 hours, and then I go in and work for 3 or 4 more. So,
yeah.
But that's a part of it. When you go into this, you have to realize it's going to be a lot of work, and it's part of who I am in my DNA. I just like to get things done, and you have to step up, and that's part of who I want to be known for. Even in Ottawa, I want to be known as the hardest working MP there. Nathan Cullen and myself have that challenge going on. And he's like, when you get elected, he goes, let's push each other to see who can get that reputation.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to take it away from you, Nathan. So.
Yeah, because we all know Nathan Cole, and I went back home for a visit and was saying about the music festivals with his family, messing around. Yeah. It's good to see and catch up with him, always,
Yeah, he was our MP back in the Bulkley Valley.
Yeah, he's a genuine individual. You meet him, you talk to him, and he's the same person outside of the spotlights as he is there. Just just a friendly, nice guy, and he's got a heart of gold. So that's what sets Nathan apart, and that's why he's so well respected in Ottawa. And that's it's a good mentor to look up to and say, you know what, you have that reputation, and I want that reputation as well.
Definitely. One thing I noticed with the NDP party and you and Nathan is there's no front. You be honest talk, and it really helps. I see in my eyes, anyways.
Definitely. Yeah. So let's talk about the importance of voting, especially for like our generation.
Yes.
Yeah. Because you see, like a lot of people our generation don't vote, and I can't understand why, other than it's just that they're rebelling against the system, but maybe it's time that we kind of rebel against the system and vote to get our referral to government.
Well, it's interesting now, even the last election, all the research has shown that if the youth turned out exactly the same rate as those over 45, we would have had an NDP majority government. And I think that's what's important about getting the message out is, your vote does count, your youth. And that's what we're trying to do is engage youth. Myself, even in the nomination process, my financial aging was 20 years old. And I think that's how you need to engage youth is that, we're going to involve you, we're going to give you responsibility, we're going to listen, and you're going to have input. And that's who I am, that's my platform, and that's how I like to operate is you need to trust people, they're able to do the job and allow them to make mistakes and grow, and that's the only way you can actually become who you are. And a lot of people have supported me and let me make my mistakes, and it's at this time it's my turn to empower people. Excuse me. And empower people to move forward.
Right. Were you surprised when Alberta won the NDP government in the turn there? I was at a party actually. I don't know if it was Mardi Gras or what, but we turned it on and went, oh, NDP! Woo! The party got started.
I don't know if I was surprised as much. When you look at the last election, I think NDP would have took it 3 years ago. But Wild Rose was getting the momentum, and those who really wanted to support and vote NDP actually voted the Conservative Party because they're like, we don't want the Wild Rose.
Right.
This election, the Wild Rose didn't have that push, and so they had their support, and it allowed the NDPers that wanted to get out and vote with their hearts come in. That was my concern going in. It was a pleasant night. I wasn't 100% shocked, but I was happy. So
cool.
Is there anything you'd like to tell our audience?
I think it's the important is get out and vote. This election, I think, is probably one of the most important elections in Canada. We're taking a look at the hits on the environment. We're taking a look at the hits on education, healthcare, First Nations, immigration, everything that makes Canada strong. We're stripping it down. We went from the #1 peacekeeping nation to the 69th in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So that's our reputation. We're known as peacekeepers. We're known as innovators. We're known as being one of the most progressive countries in the world. And now we've fallen apart. So it's important that we get out and make that change. And especially in this riding at Cariboo Prince George, the NDP and the Conservatives are neck and neck. And if you want to make that change, the NDP is the only party that can defeat the Conservatives here.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Trent.
All right.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
You got our vote.
Thank you. All right. Thank you.